Time. It is one of the fundamental scalar quantities. We use time, play with time, etc. Here in our universe there are two types of times, which are universal time and standard time. Universal time is the time from the start of the universe, whereas the standard time is the time which we introduced for our use. In this we are going to use only standard time. The mysterious thing of time is that to control it or is to travel in time, commonly known as time travel. There are many theories proposed about this topic. As always, drawbacks of this were purely dominated the theories. Some of the drawbacks are: 1. Time is loop. 2. We can't change the past. 3. We cannot change the present by knowing the future. Time travel was an impossible thing since it forms time loop. The term time loop is defined in Time Travel blog. To overcome all these drawbacks, I've introduced a theory, timeline theory. This theory mainly says that time travel happened between timelines. The term timeline is defined as the point of time which moves on an infinite length line. There exists a timeverse, Kairos Cosmos, in Greece, in which several timelines exist. The timeline which we are in is timeline 0. Timeline. As said, it is the point of time which moves on an infinite length line. The start is the start of time, i.e., from the beginning of that universe which corresponds to that timeline. The timeline is represented infinite length line. Representation of a timeline. Timeline can be represented in two ways. Simple timeline representation. In this representation we do not represent the start. Here all the timelines have a same point of time in a vertical line. Example. Here, let's us assume that the time gap between both timelines is 1 unit, but we do not show it in representation. This type of representation does not exist. This is just a theoretical approach. I use this for my comfort. We simply denote this representation as T suffixes. In this representation we take as if the timelines started at a same time, but the timelines differ the start by any unit, cc, min, hour, years, which make difference in time and timelines, and which is the main reason of existence of timelines and the idea of time travel. These represent the multiverse. This will also be discussed in my next blog. Actual timeline representation. As said above, the timelines do not have fixed start, so we will not represent the start, but the start is as follows. X. The 1 unit can be, cc, min, hour, years, which is equal to the time gap between the starts of timelines. The timelines differ the start by any unit, cc, min, hour, years, which make difference in time and timelines, and which is the main reason of existence of timelines and the idea of time travel. With the above two representations we can represent timelines as of our needs. Relative time or suffixes. The time to which we go with respect to our timeline is known as relative time. This could exist with positive, negative signs also. Example, if you want to go 1104 years in the past, the relative time is minus 1104 years. This gives a conclusion that, if we travel to past, the relative time is negative, and as we travel to future, the relative time is positive. The proof to this is explained in the next subtopic, which is relative timeline. The timeline to which we go is the destination timeline. The timeline from which we start is known as the reference timeline. If it is represented with respect to our timeline, then it is known as the relative timeline. It is denoted with T, suffix L and prefix O, the modulus of relative timeline, the relative time. This concept is used to calculate the relative time. It is as x1, the t0, time in your timeline, equals 9:21:00, t1, time in which timeline you go, equals 9:30:00, traveling to future, find the relative time? Equals 9:30:00, 9 hours and 21 minutes. Equals 9 minutes. This should subtract the respective units. 2. The t0, time in your timeline, equals 9:30:00, t1, time in which timeline you go, equals 9:23:00, traveling to past, find the relative time? Equals 9:21:00, 9 hours and 30 minutes. Equals minus 9 minutes. From this we can conclude that relative time can be negative, indicating traveling to past. Here is an example of relative time. Check the image of how the traveling takes place into future or to past. Travel time. It is the modulus of relative time. It is the time gap between two particular timelines. Then I was struck at a moment on thinking of stopping time. As we cannot stop time, I have to think about any alternative. Question: what will happen if we stop time, or how can we stop time? It took time, but not so long till I introduced theorems on stopping time. These theorems will be in my next video. Till then, goodbye.